From Barry and Iris starting a new family to reuniting with Cisco, there's potential for all kinds of feels in The Flash's final season. There are storylines the show has been building up since day one, and you have to imagine those things are going to pay off. Here are some predictions for what's in store for Barry's last run. And speaking of Barry running, we could use a throwback to the good old days. Remember when The Flash had one of those one-off episodes where Barry just beat the villain of the week?
You're done messing with other people's minds, Zotar, including mine.
Someone from the team would usually tell him to run, Barry, run, just before he finally saves the day. Those kinds of episodes have fallen by the wayside in recent seasons of the show. There hasn't been much time for small-scale shenanigans when the world, the universe, or the multiverse were at stake. But I like to imagine that the final season can get us to the point where we can have these kinds of adventures again. Right here on the CW, a certain show pulled this off pretty well. The very last episode of their long-running hit, Supernatural, started off as a day-in-the-life type of story. After everything the boys had been through, we got to join them on one last hunt with relatively low stakes. I say The Flash could try that aspect of the episode and nothing else.
What's going on?
Now, obviously that can't be the tone of the entire season. Especially with just 13 episodes on the schedule, the show needs to cover a lot of ground. So, let's talk specifics about what's going to happen with the characters. We've got to start with the Scarlet Speedster himself. Where will things end for Barry and Iris? Well, I think that's an easy one. It's been right in front of our noses throughout the show. I'll bet these final episodes will show us the beginning of the West Allen family. There's no mystery about whether this is going to happen. Thanks to Barry's utter lack of respect for the timeline, we've already met their children. Considering the ages of Bart and Nora Allen in 2049, it's about time for them to enter the present. So, there are two reasons why I think we'll be racing for our tissues here. Firstly, it will give us a glimpse of how the Flash family will keep going.
Okay? Hold on, Chester, I'm on my way.
With superhero shows, either the hero dies or you get to the final credits with the reassurance that things will go on. Barry's kids will serve as the latter sort of ending. We may not be around to watch the escapades of the Flash anymore, and someday neither will Barry, but his legacy will live on for generations. Aside from that, it'll also just be a really happy ending for this couple. Through years of drama, risking their lives for each other, and messing with alternate universes and timelines, Barry and Iris have stayed together. Having a retirement with kids on the horizon is honestly the least this couple deserves. Now, if Vin Diesel were here, he'd probably remind us that family is about more than just blood. Will we see the return of Barry's old friends? Okay, so regardless of which Barry's allies can make time in their schedule, one guy is non-negotiable. That, of course, is Cisco Raymond. Carlos Valdez was a part of the Flash's story from the very beginning. However, he departed the show in season 7, and many tears were shed over his leaving. Now that the show is coming to an end, I think it'd be pretty inappropriate to end it without the original Team Flash. I like to think Carlos agrees with me on this and can be persuaded to return for at least an episode, if not the whole season.
Barry, you need to think very carefully right now.
I'm asking you to save the world and you won't even listen! You're gonna hear me now.
Aside from Cisco, I think that this final season could be a good opportunity to bring back other luminaries of the Arrowverse. After all, The Flash is one of the pillars on which this entire franchise stood. While Arrow, the other pillar, ended years ago, The Flash continued to hold the torch. As it happens, even in the universe, Barry is friends with many characters from around the Arrowverse. We already know some are slated to make appearances. David Ramsey's John Diggle has always been game to appear in this franchise, and his return has been confirmed. So too will Bloodwork and Wally West. But the coolest thing is that somehow we're getting Stephen Amell back on screen. Apparently, showrunner Eric Wallace discussed some insane idea with Amell, and they both agreed on it.
Love what you've done with the place. It's different. than the last captain.
I can only imagine what the idea could be. More multiverse shenanigans? More timeline shenanigans? A flashback? That might be the most exciting thing about Season 9. When it comes to the original Team Flash though, one character is in desperate need of closure, and we gotta know how the Killer Frost storyline ends. So Caitlin Snow has been on the show since the very beginning. In the comics, Snow is the real name of Flash villain Killer Frost. I'm assuming that even though she started off as a good guy, the writers had a plan for how to get Caitlin to Killer Frost status. Something in that plan must have backfired though, because the show has really been fumbling with her.
We're getting close.
The relationship between Kate and Frost has changed so many times by now. At the moment, Frost is Caitlin's sister, sort of. During the climax of Season 8, Frost decided to set her villainy aside and sacrifice herself to stop Deathstorm. We last saw Caitlin trying to resurrect Frost. Will they actually bring Frost back, or will they keep her dead? I suppose either scenario is possible. I'm leaning towards them keeping Frost dead. After all the weirdness surrounding the Ice Queen of the show, I think it's time for her to rest. And while Caitlin is sad that she's gone, I think I'd like to see her move past Killer Frost too. Whatever feelings she had towards her, Frost was a bad thing to be around in her life.
Keep up.
While she's gone, Caitlin can maybe try to figure out what her own future is going to be like. Here's a villain that I do think needs to come back. I'm talking about Reverse Flash. Okay, this might be the most controversial idea I've put forth yet. Eobard Thawne died in the last season, and Wallace insists that it was totally real this time. But how many times have we seen that song and dance before? The fact is that Thawne has died and come back so many times throughout this show that we can never believe it when he's gone. Because of those writing choices, quote, killing him off isn't really an option anymore in terms of giving this character closure. So I think Reverse Flash has to come back one more time. And for all the history that he and Barry have shared together, there needs to be a different and more emotional conclusion to their rivalry.
Destroys a man like losing the ones he loves the most.
I was just thinking about.
Maybe the two of them can find a way to make peace. In that sense, Thawne doesn't even have to die at all. As long as he's no longer a threat to Barry, all is good. Now, this is the Flash, so I'm sure things won't be that easy. There will probably be a supersonic fight or two along the way. But once they get down to it, I think they can bury the hatchet. I doubt they'll be friends or anything, but at least they can call a truce and stop threatening each other. And that's everything that I think is coming up in the 9th and final season of The Flash.